Welcome back, Survivalist. So the very first kit that you should be building is a shelter-in-place kit. So before you build a bug-out bag or wilderness survival kit or any of these things, you need to have your shelter-in-place kit in order. And the reason for this, because during the vast majority of disaster and emergency situations, sheltering in place is your best course of action. During a hurricane, a blizzard, a tornado, a bad storm, an active shooter, a pandemic, any of these scenarios, your best course of action is to shelter in place. And that is why this is the most important kit that you're going to have and why everybody should have a shelter-in-place kit. So today we're breaking down all the items that I've included in this shelter-in-place kit. Most of these items are actually recommended by FEMA and on their website are recommended items, and there's a few additional items that I've included in this kit as well. So first let's talk about the actual container of your shelter-in-place kit. Now you can just go with any book bag. I think that'd be a perfectly fine container for your shelter-in-place kit. But if you can, I do recommend a Tupperware container like this that is essentially water resistant. I don't want to say this thing is completely waterproof, but let's say one of your pipes freeze and you have a water leak in your home. You have 3 inches of water in your home. Everything in here would still be just fine and still workable. If you had it in a book bag, a lot of the stuff in there could get ruined or damaged from the water. That's why I like having at least a waterproof container. And you do want a fairly large, I guess maybe a medium size to a large Tupperware container for your shelter-in-place kit. This is probably like the minimum size that you want, but you can go much larger with your kit as well. So let's go ahead and open this up, and I'm gonna be going through all the items in no particular order, just as I'm pulling them out from this kit and kind of giving you my thoughts on the gear. So the very first thing I have in here is a 72-hour kit by Patriot Pantry of freeze-dried food. So FEMA and the CDC recommends that you have 3 days worth of food for everybody in your home. Now when it comes to food, there's a couple of directions that you can go with this. You most likely already have a good bit of extra food in your pantry and in your cabinets and your freezer and your refrigerator, and you can just buy additional food if you want to and store it there in your pantries and just kind of cycle through that. But I do think it is also helpful to include some freeze-dried meals for emergencies as well to kind of supplement the food that you have in your pantry. So you can kind of go either direction with that. Now the next thing that I included in here is going to be a solar lantern from Luminade. Now FEMA recommends that you have a flashlight with spare batteries in your emergency kit. I'm gonna be honest though, I much prefer a lantern to that. I much prefer having that omnidirectional light lighting up the entire room rather than a directional light that I need to hold onto and ties up one of my hands. And something like this has a recharger, it's rechargeable and has the solar panels on there so that you can charge it up in the daytime. And I am a huge fan of these, especially for emergency situations. And when it comes to a shelter-in-place kit like this, I really like having the renewable light source with the solar panels, or I can charge this from my car or any other battery system that I may have as well. And I really like that aspect, just in case that 24-hour emergency turns into a week-long emergency. Having that sustainable energy for the entire week, I think is pretty important. So I am a big fan of these Luminades for your emergency shelter-in-place kit at home. Now moving along, we also have a emergency radio. And this also acts as a flashlight. So if you needed a directional flashlight, you have this. There are also other emergency radios that have a bank of flashlights or have lanterns built into it. What I love about this is that it also has a crank on it. So if you need a light source right then and there, you can get that without having to wait until the next day to charge up all your batteries. This also has a solar charger built into the top of it. So again, you'll leave this out during the daytime, you can fully charge this. And it does take USB ports as well, as you can recharge those batteries in here from this USB port, or you can use this to charge other devices. Now that's not optimal, obviously, but if you were absolutely in a pinch, you could sit there and crank on this to charge your cell phone or something like that. So this is absolutely invaluable. Now most emergency situations are weather related. So having a NOAA weather radio is absolutely crucial just to get those emergency updates on what the forecast is with the weather. I think that's a huge advantage. Now this particular radio is made by Eaton, but there actually are quite a few different manufacturers doing pretty good emergency radios that have all these different features built into them as well. But this is the one that I have in my own shelter-in-place kit, and I'll have a link to this down in the description below, as well as a lot of the other gear and a list of all the items I'm including in my shelter-in-place kit. So moving along, another item I want you to include is an extra cell phone charger. This is absolutely a critical item. I definitely consider your cell phone to be one of the most important survival items or survival gear that you have, just to get the weather updates and news updates and be able to communicate with others and call for help in a case of emergency. Call an ambulance, call a fire truck, call the police, any of these things. So definitely have an extra cell phone charger. Make sure you have the appropriate charging cables for all the phones in your family. And just having this USB cable is how you can charge your phone using this emergency radio, or charge your lantern or your emergency radio from other devices as well. Now, in the same tune as this, I also want you to have a backup battery in your emergency kit. So again, your cell phone is arguably one of the most important items in this entire kit. You want to make sure that you have a full charge on that, and that's why I love these big battery banks that they have out today. These things are so affordable these days. Now you can buy a smaller one, anywhere from $10 to $20. You can get something this size for $40, $50, $60. What I love about it is it has a solar panel built into it as well. So again, similar to a lot of these other items, you leave this out during the daytime, it charges it up, and then you can use this to charge your cell phone, or use this to charge your lantern, charge your emergency radio as well. So this is absolutely turned into a critical item that I think every prepper should have in their home. You can take this out to your car if you need it to and charge it up in your car, then bring it back into your home, whatever you need. And this is the kind of thing that's not actually included on the FEMA checklist of a home emergency kit like this, but this is definitely a very important item in my opinion. And it does have a flashlight built into it as well. There we go. So moving along, another item you want to include in here is going to be a first aid kit. Really, any standard first aid kit will do. You can buy them anywhere from $10 all the way up to $20, $25 for a home first aid kit. Now you see a lot of first aid kits that say, oh, we have 500-piece first aid kit. Like, the truth is, any simple first aid kit will do. A lot of these more elaborate first aid kits have some very advanced medical, like sutures and medical supplies in there that the average person is just not going to know how to use. You don't need a really elaborate first aid kit. A simple first aid kit will do. And mostly what you're doing in that first aid kit is, if you have a cut, you're covering up that cut and keeping it from getting infected, and keeping it from getting worse. That's the kind of the most important part with a first aid kit. Some of them may have like burn ointments and that sort of stuff in them as well. But just a basic first aid kit is all that you really need, unless you have some advanced medical training. Then you can go and get an advanced first aid kit. So kind of in the same mindset as the first aid kit, I want you guys to have dust masks in your emergency or shelter-in-place kit. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, everybody is, wearing these things non-stop, or variations of these. But there's a lot of specific emergency situations where this really comes in handy. One of them is going to be flooding. With flooding, the aftermath of the flooding is almost as hazardous as the actual flooding itself. Let's say you have a foot of water in your home. The next day, when that water recedes, all of that drywall in your home, your entire home, is immediately going to start growing mold. All your furniture are going to start growing mold. And what you really need to do is actually cut maybe 4 or 5 feet up off the ground of that drywall and remove all the drywall out of your home and all the furniture with the water damage out of your home as well, before the mold really starts growing on that. So these are really helpful in cases of flooding where there is potential mold growing. It's also really helpful, let's say if there's a forest fire, right, and you're inhaling those ashes and the gases and everything. This is going to help filter that air quite a bit. And then of course there's biological and chemical and nuclear threats as well where this could provide some level of protection. There's just a lot of different scenarios where there's stuff in the air that you don't want to breathe in, and having a face mask like this is definitely very helpful. Also with first aid as well. If you are dealing with some more elaborate first aid scenarios, you may want to have a face mask on as well. So face masks are definitely a great item to include in your shelter-in-place kit. Moving along, I am a big fan of duct tape. Duct tape is such a versatile tool, especially in emergency situations. There's just a wide variety of use cases for duct tape, but specifically in a shelter-in-place kit, I think there's especially a lot of situations. So for example, let's say you're in the middle of a blizzard and it's freezing cold outside. You may want to take some duct tape and seal up all the gaps around your windows and doors to stop letting all that air seeping into your home. Let's say one of your windows breaks because of a storm, or because of a tree falling down or branches or something. Again, you get some cardboard, you get some duct tape, you can do a temporary fix on that window. And you can do a lot of temporary fixes with duct tape. You have a tear in your clothes, you can fix it with duct tape. You have a wound, you can put gauze on, wrap it around, keep it on there with some duct tape. You have a frozen pipe that bursts. You can do a temporary fix with duct tape. Just a huge use cases for duct tape. You can use this as cordage as well. You can twist it up if you need to have some rope or build a shelter or something. There's an unlimited amount of stuff that you can do with duct tape. It is a very versatile tool, and absolutely should be one of the things that you include in your shelter-in-place kit. Now, to go along with the duct tape, FEMA recommends that you have plastic sheets in your home emergency kit as well. Now, plastic sheets are really useful for those radioactive and nuclear and chemical threats. Right now, those are not the most common threats, but there is a risk of that happening. What FEMA wants you to do is duct tape sheets of plastic over all your windows and all your vents in your home to completely isolate yourself and make sure that there's no air coming in to your home, or very little air coming into your home from the exterior. That's really where these come in handy. But you can also use these for a lot of other uses as well. Just duct taping these over your windows could provide some level of insulation and help keep your home warm, keep that warmth from going out and the cold air coming in through the windows. You could build shelters inside your home, right? It is not unreasonable if you have a tent and it's freezing cold and you're in a winter blackout. It's not unreasonable to set up a tent inside your home, because that is going to help contain your own body's heat in a much smaller area and heat up that air within the tent. And if you don't have a tent, you can make some sort of makeshift shelter using this. And this isn't going to provide you much insulation, but it's going to help contain your own body's heat in a much smaller area. A lot of survival situations, you don't have to focus too much on producing a source of heat. Just containing your own body heat is going to be effective enough, and you could build a simple enough shelter using plastic sheets and duct tape like this within your own home. So it's definitely a great item to include, I think. Now, it's not a top priority that you have plastic sheets like this, but it's something that FEMA recommends, and there definitely are plenty of scenarios where having plastic sheets is going to be very useful. Now, similar to plastic sheets, FEMA also recommends that you have trash bags, and I agree with this. Trash bags have a lot of the same use cases as plastic sheets, but trash bags are also great if your plumbing no longer works. If you have to use the toilet, you can still bring these in, line your toilet bowl with this, do your business, and then take the trash bag with you, throw it outdoors when you're done using it, right? That's a big problem for a lot of people. What happens if the water stops flowing into your home, but you have to isolate your home and shelter in place for a week without any running water? What do you do for using the bathroom? Plastic trash bags is what you do. That's where that comes in handy. And there are a lot of other use cases for plastic trash bags as well, but they want you to include it in this kit primarily for bathroom use case there. Even if the water is not flowing, you can use this, line your toilet bowl, and still use your toilet bowl if you need to. Going along with that, they also recommend that you have toilet paper in your shelter-in-place kit. I think that is also a good idea, specifically for using the bathroom. There's probably some other use cases for toilet paper as well, though. Now, another item that I'm including that's not on FEMA's checklist is going to be some hand sanitizer. And you could keep this in your first aid kit if you want to as well. Obviously, with the pandemic, we've seen the importance of hand sanitizer, but I think if you were sheltering in place without any electricity and out any running water, this is a great addition to include in your makeshift bathroom. There's just a lot of other situations where keeping clean is really important. During a lot of these emergency situations, hygiene kind of goes out the window, right? If you have an entire family in one house, no electricity, no running water for an entire week, you are all going to be filthy and disgusting. That's just the truth of it. And trying to stay as clean as possible is important to prevent the spread of viruses and bacteria. And hand sanitizer, I think, is going to be very, very helpful in that situation, especially to keep within your bathroom. Now, another item that I included is going to be glow sticks. So a lot of the light sources that I include in my kit, they have to be charged, right? And you could get into a situation where you don't have any light source when you first open up this kit. That's where these glow sticks really come in handy. It's going to be for the first few hours of an emergency. When you open this up, use your glow sticks for a light source. But these can also be used for signaling. These are a great source of signaling, and these glow sticks will last you 12 hours. So, I think back to Hurricane Katrina, where everybody, we had huge flood waters, 12 feet high. People are up in their attics. If you had a glow stick, you could stick this out, your attic vent or something, start waving to people. You can somehow signal to people that you need help using a glow stick. You can also attach some cord to this, start spinning it around. That's a great big neon signal for people. So I included some glow sticks for signaling for help, as well as a light source during those first few hours, just in case all my rechargeable batteries are not working. And even if you have flashlights with batteries in them, it's still a really good item to include, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm also including some water in my emergency kit. Now, FEMA recommends that you have 1 gallon of water per person per day for up to 3 days in your home. Obviously, that is a lot that could be up to 15 gallons of water for a family of 5, which you can't keep in your actual emergency kit, but you can keep that separate. I still think it's really helpful to have in this exact emergency kit, though, some water as a backup, just in case you can't get access to those other gallons of water that you have. So it is good to have a little bit of water in here. Now, FEMA also recommends that you have maps in your emergency kit. I actually do love this idea, and I definitely recommend it. You have to envision, what if you can't use your vehicle and you can't use your cell phone or your GPS, but you need to get to the hospital. Can you do that without using your GPS? A lot of people can't, or a lot of kids can't, especially if you're moving to a new area. So you can buy a map of your city from a gas station, something like that, fairly cheap. Another option that I really like is that you can go on Google Maps and you can create custom maps with different waypoints here. So here I just created one of the city, and I marked off all the hospitals, police stations, and fire department stations and printed this off. So especially if you have a lot of children, having labels here and little waypoints of maybe where your house is and where all these other really important locations are that they may have to walk to in an absolute emergency situation, I think is a great idea. And if you're building a individual bag maybe for each of your children, having printed maps like this of your specific city, I think is definitely a great addition. Now, one last item that I included in my home shelter-in-place kit is a deck of cards. And hear me out, this thing doesn't take up much space at all. But again, if you envision you and your family staying in your home with no power for up to a week, you're going to get bored. You're going to start going crazy without any entertainment. And when you start getting bored, that is when you start making mistakes. You start getting restless. You start getting complacent. You need something to keep your mind stimulated just a little bit. And a deck of cards is a great way to do that, to keep your mind and your family minds, your kids' minds off the current situation. You could also include some board games or some dice or some books in your home emergency kit as well, especially if you have young children. And I will have a list of all the items I included in my shelter-in-place kit, as well as my recommendations for a few of these items down in the description below. And if you want to learn what the 11 items are that FEMA wants all Americans to keep in their homes at all times, check out my video I did right here breaking that down. Don't forget to subscribe for more prepping and survival videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you over in the next video.